it's a twofold perversion. One, on the sense of the physical and our cognitive and physiological capabilities, with our attention in just focusing on that. The the extreme loss of focal recognition of anything of any sort. That the complete um, overturn of our hierarchy of needs that is normally present and more or less draws our attention to satisfying observed needs, or and that once those have been satisfactorily met, to pursue higher goods that fulfill our deeper wants and needs as we ascertain them in the world. You lose that in that loss of identity piece, and in many ways it's frightening to encounter someone who lacks that sheer ability to see you as a person. I think that's the thing that makes films about psychopaths equally concerning, and terrifying to watch. Is here's a human being that looks just like you, yet this human being does not act in a manner that is consistent with what you understand to be a human being. There's a blatant disregard for the dignity of the other that we hold so closely to. That the concept that we are made in the image and likeness of God, and yet it isn't recognized that that's the case. There's a spectrum of deterioration of that visual recognition of that identity that I think is in play. And at the extremes, you have the monster of either the hierarchy, the high end or the low end, where you're food for one and you're slave for the other. And I think for the other piece of it, being the spiritual, and very much the idea of a zombie apocalypse is a perversion of the resurrection. I think one of the things we in modern Western Christianity, if we really take this seriously, the thought of a second coming, wherein all of us will be resurrected in a glorified body like our risen Lord, I think that is such a remarkable statement that just simply isn't discussed all that much. But we have instead a very emaciated version of this, wherein that reality isn't actually present. It's a matter of, well, instead of us experiencing this theosis at its zenith, wherein we enjoy that glorified body as Christ did, and that we see in the Gospels, we get this shriveled, dead corpse now that is devoid of that divinity that was so promised to us.
And so, and then another thing that I want to kind of quickly hop back to, which is ironically, and well, maybe unironically, another quote from the same trilogy. In the second installment of that, the main character is having a run-in with something harshly zombie-like, right? And has this moment of like Nicholas was talking about earlier, what are you so afraid of? And I feel like Lewis really smacks the nail on the head, like one hit, one kill kind of thing. He says, if Ransom had said nothing, it was because he could not speak. I think that's profound already. His ability to speak, the logos had been taken from him from simply seeing the thing, right? It says he saw a man who was certainly not ill, and to judge from the easy stance and the powerful use he had just been making of his hands, he saw a man who was certainly Weston, to judge from his height and build and the coloring of his features. In that sense, he was quite recognizable, but the terror was that he was also deeply unrecognizable. He did not look like a sick man, but he looked very like a dead one. And the face that was raised from the torturing mass had a terrible power, which the face of a corpse sometimes has, of simply rebuffing every conceivable human attitude one can adopt toward it. The expressionless mouth, the unwinking stare of the eyes, something heavy and inorganic about the folds of the cheeks said clearly, I have features as you have, but there is nothing in common between you and me. And it was that kept Ransom speechless. What could you say? What appeal or threat could have any meaning to that? And now, forcing its way up into his consciousness, thrusting aside every mental habit, every longing not to believe, came the conviction that this, in fact, was not a man.
Everything we've been talking about just reminds me how, like, this is what we were supposed to be. This is what a human looks like, or at least is supposed to look like. Spirit in at the head, soul our heart, our understanding, our knowledge, our discernment, in subjection to that, and then body in subjection to that, and the whole thing in subjection to Christ as the head. And it's very much like our spirit in collaboration, in synergism with the spirit of Christ. So if this is a human, this is a zombie. And that's really what it looks like to try to, kind of live life like this, where our bodies and our passions are driving our emotions and driving our understanding and our wisdom, which then drives our ability or lack thereof to have any kind of organizing principle to connect with ourselves and connect with God and connect with others. And of course, that's where we get that complete separation, because that's at the very bottom, because that's just not what matters. And the cure is up there. Someone else coming in from the outside, uniting our self to his self and becoming our life.